Hello. I know we're 8 minutes early, but I'm in a mischievous mood, and I thought I'd just come on early and see if anybody's here. I could see nobody's here. Oh, there are 10 people here. It's only happened once in my life where a plane has taken off before it was supposed to take off. Usually planes are delayed. But I remember sitting in the lounge at Heathrow Airport, and a flight was called 20 minutes early. And it was such a surprise. And I thought I'd do the same thing. I'd just start talking. There are just 10 of us here. So this is a sort of small, intimate space. And in 7 minutes, I'll put on the theme tune and we'll start properly. But let's just be together. There are 16 of us, 17 of us here at the moment. Alison from Ohio, and even from Norway, and Anna from Portugal, and various people. Yeah, 32 people. Oh, wow. People are turning up early. This is fun. There's this concept in psychology called breaking set, where you do things differently. And I just decided to do something differently. And but I will start properly. Just otherwise, it's kind of unfair on those people who are planning to watch from. But lovely to see you. Hi, Beck in New York. Hi, Alan in Tipperary, and Steve in California, and Sumiran in New Delhi. Hello, great to see you. Andrew King, Catherine in West Yorkshire, Kata in Sweden. Yeah. It's a bit like if you do public speaking and you come to a hall, you've got a choice really. You can either sort of stay to one side and then walk onto the stage at it depends on the setting, of course, but you can either just walk on at the time you're scheduled and start talking. But especially when you're in smaller, more intimate contexts, usually you're in the same room with the audience who's going to be with you anyway. So what I often do is I just start chatting to people anyway, because they've been kind enough to turn up early for the talk. You're not scheduled for another 10 minutes or whatever. And you can either sit there in silence and then start dead on time, or you can just have a little formal discussion with people before it actually begins. Blimey, says Oshery Steve in Glastonbury. Florbella, you're in Sintra, such a beautiful place in Portugal. That's lovely. And I love the person whose name is Hanging Laundry. And yes, so who else have we got? Devour of Mani in Sweden. Ferme Bio La Breuil in France. That was a biological farm in France. Fantastic. And Jeremy in central Minnesota. And Raggy in Bayreuth. Does that mean you're on opera level? Do you go to the opera a lot? I wonder. Liz, thought you'd be here an hour later because we have changed our time, but yeah. Anyway, no, this is the correct time as far as I'm aware. Okay, lovely. So we've got a few minutes to go. I'm sort of giving myself the luxury to pause as well. And I suppose what, these times offer us is a time to explore what it means to be in relationship. I mean, there's a relationship between you and me going on, whatever that is. And then there's also the relationship in the circle, the 85 people who are now in this circle together, gathering. And quite what that means is what I love about the internet, I think, in this medium, is it means it's not fixed. We can actually explore this in more detail. In some ways, I wish we were on Zoom, because then it wouldn't be one way. I wouldn't be just looking at myself, as it were, when I'm talking to you. But what I try to do is I really do try to imagine that I'm seated in a forest clearing with a little fire burning in the center, and that we're all seated around it. So now the other thing, do tell me, I see Pamela says, I lost you. I'm in a new environment. And so if the internet is, problematic, do tell me. I think that the connection is good at the moment. But tell me if you can't hear me properly or if the connection isn't good. So, okay, it's 2 minutes to go. In 2 minutes, I'm going to press these. I've got these various buttons here, and I'll press the button to begin our session together. And a very kind, nice guy made this little intro. He made a number of variations of this intro film that I've been using for the last couple of years. Pamela says you are in and out here. I don't know if that's you or me, Pamela. I hope. Nimi says it's all fine for me. Vincent says it's fine. I think it might be your internet, Pamela. And Gina in Helston in Cornwall says it's all good from here. So I'm on the run. Yes, what's it saying? I notice you're not in. Yes, I'm on the run. Hence the anonymous background here, so you can't tell where I am. I can't be tracked. Where Stephanie and I are going to be sort of on the move for, in a way, for the next 6 months. I was talking last week about the sort of chaos we're going through. It's good chaos, but basically we're moving over the next 6 months. So I'll be doing these teas from all sorts of different places and locations. And also this evening, I'm waiting for our a grandchild to be born. Our daughter Sophie is having a baby, and it's happening any minute now. So it's an exciting time. Okay, so Sumiran, I have an interesting story how I came to join Obod. You got a tarot, Druidcraft Tarot, which I received as a birthday gift from my tarot mentor. That's lovely to hear, Sumiran, in New Delhi. That's great. I love India so much. I've had some lovely travels in it. Here we go. I'm going to press the button now. I will be back shortly. Hello, good evening, and welcome to Tea with a Druid, number 250. There have been 250 Teas with a Druid over the last few years. It's lovely to see you. It's great that you're here, and it's lovely to see everybody arriving in the forest clearing together. I actually decided to have fun and to arrive 10 minutes early, and I've been chatting to the sort of 20 or 30 or so people who arrived early too, and we had a great time just being together before actually beginning tea. So if you see the recording, you'll see the bit before. But lovely to see you. And Catherine saying, congratulations for the birth of your granddaughter. I hope that all goes well. Well, we don't know if it's a granddaughter or a grandson. I have one of our daughters has had a daughter 9 months ago, and she's an absolute pleasure, lovely. And now our second daughter is having a baby, and that's happening now, this evening. So that's very exciting. So hello from all over the place, Pender Island, and it's all going so fast. Germany, Denmark, all sorts of wonderful places, South Wales. And there are about 200 of us now in the circle. That's just lovely. And as friends are still arriving from all directions, let's just take a moment just to tune in, just to be together, and just to see if we can capture this rather unusual feeling that we're not alone. Even though we may seem to be alone sitting in front of a screen somewhere in the world, in the physical world, actually we're connected because we're sharing the same cultural space, intellectual space, and spiritual space together. We're in a circle together. Tune into how you're feeling. Allow a word to arise or two, and just type that in so we can get a feeling for the gathering today. It's hard to be truly alone these days, says Morgan. Yes, and particularly in the rather chaotic time certainly we as a family are going through. It's hard to be literally physically alone. Nervous, connected, buoyed up, anxious, exhausted and content, busy and overwhelmed, deeply grateful, melancholy, anxious and uncertain, relaxed, happy, blessed and at peace, whole for the first time in a few weeks, uncertain, new, chilled, happy to be with my grove, feeling at peace in the moment, peaceful amongst the chaos, connected, a little worried, at one with nature, reborn in the spring sunshine, tired, trying to relax after a long-term teaching, hopeful, missing my estranged daughter, I'm sorry to hear that, tired, confused but hopeful, settled and a little listless, happy, but, it's gone, but busy, irritable, I meant that, resolute and motivated. Greetings. Lovely, great to hear from you. Do keep adding in how you're feeling. Here's a theme that came up. I was looking at the suggestions that a number of you had sent in for what we could discuss and explore, and I so wanted to explore some of them, but they're all big topics you've suggested, really big topics that need like an hour or something. And I was wondering about that, and so I just asked the question, what should we explore today? And here's what came up for me, which is a topic that's really relevant to those of us who are studying Druidry, or are interested in it, or are simply interested in a feature of the Druid tradition and many other approaches as well, which is the business of storytelling and of story. And I wanted to just throw out some ideas and see where they land, see what you think of them. And I'd be really interested to hear what you think. It goes like this. My train of thought. It goes like this. There are two injunctions which I think are both equally valuable, but which seem to be contradictory. And the first injunction is to own your story. Now, what do I mean by that, own your story? Well, when you start training in psychotherapy, or you just start doing therapy, counseling, psychotherapy, or the task of developing self-knowledge, the famous sign above the oracle at Delphi, know thyself, this great injunction of the spiritual path to come to know yourself. And part of coming to know yourself is coming to know your story and what is known in sort of psychological parlance as owning your story. Because what happens is we go through difficult experiences and we tend to push them out of the way. We don't own them, we disown them. So these can either be traumatic experiences that we've been through, or they can be memories of our own behavior, thoughts, or feelings that we're not proud of, are embarrassed about, or even feel really guilty about. And so we don't own them, we push them away. And close interpersonal relationships are very good training grounds for us having to own our story and face perhaps the less attractive aspects of our personality and our behavior. And anyone who's kind of in this world, or who's been through or is going through counseling and all the rest of it, will know of the tremendous value this has. Developing self-knowledge, owning your story, gradually come to take on board. And it doesn't, I quite like the concept of Roberto Assagioli, the founder of psychosynthesis, where he talked about fractional integration. The idea is you just gradually take stuff on board. You don't have to sort of suddenly own everything about your, whole life. If it's tough, take it on board fractionally. And that's where counseling and therapy can help to gradually. But here's the thing. There's another injunction which says completely the opposite. And that is, get off your storyline, or get off the storyline. Now, what does that mean? I don't know where it comes from. I was taught it, or told it, by a good friend, Pamela Meeking-Stewart, who's been on Tea with a Druid before. And when she talked about it, it made a lot of sense. And the idea behind the injunction to get off your storyline is that we develop stories about ourselves and about other people. Oh, she's like that because, and I'm like this because, and the world's like that because. So we develop stories which help us to have a sense of meaning, but they can so easily become excuses, and they can so easily get in the way with an intense experience of the now, unclouded by justifications and rationales. And see if this works for you. It's particularly helpful as an injunction when you've got habitual patterns of behavior. I can't help doing that because my father did this, or my mother did that, or I have to do that because, like that. And the injunction to get off the storyline, stop thinking that you're controlled by the past. This opens us to a really, really interesting issue in psychology. It's about what is causative. Is it the past or the future? So, Freud famously particularly developed this idea of the causation of our childhood and our past, that we are who we are because of everything that's happened in the past. That makes sense, and it's kind of logical. James Hillman, a neo-Jungian analyst, came up with this wonderful concept, which he calls the acorn theory. So I think it's a good one for Druids. The acorn theory, which suggests that, or poses the question, what if our future is as causative as our past? He calls it the acorn theory because he talks about the way in which within an acorn, the future tree is already calling it to grow into what it needs to become. And so he suggests and gives all sorts of examples from history and famous people and all the rest of it, of how people's futures seem to have been latent within their childhoods, and so it plays around with our sense of causation. So there's one idea, and we can just play with this ourselves and think about, to what extent does this mean anything to me? Get off my storyline, own my own story. How can I do both? Well, you can. They seem to be paradoxical or contradictory, but they're not. You can do both. Own it first and then get off, I suppose, could be one way of putting it. And there's something incredibly empowering about being in the world with a sense that you're not determined by your story. Like, if I can sit with you now and just be me, if I can just be Philip sitting in a room somewhere in England, talking to you who are all over the place, and I'm just me. I'm just trying to be authentic and genuine and to think clearly and to explain myself clearly. And that's why I don't have to think about, whether I trained in this, that, or the other, or what my history is or whatever. There's something empowering in that and freeing in that. And of course, I've realized, tell you why I've paused, because I've realized this is huge. And do I go on to the next bit, or is this enough? And I just want to look at your comments. It's fascinating. Is our story not changing from minute to minute? Sandy Coombs, I found owning my past held me back for many years. Druid showed me a gateway to still own it, but move forward with fresh insights. That's lovely. Thank you, Sandy. Yes. Let's just pick a few. It is so freeing and so hard when the weight of other stories about you is so heavy. Because that's the other thing you point to, Erin, that's very interesting. It's not just you owning your story, but of course it's what other people think you are and the stories they have about you, whether or not they're true, to what degree they're colored and biased and so on. It's like there's a whole sort of mesh of stories. And when you look at it, not in the individual sense, but in the cultural sense, in the stories that are happening in the world, the war in Ukraine, any political situation, any social situation, and you'll see there are different perspectives and different stories that have been woven around them. Which one are you going to believe? How are you going to respond? I'm so interested in what you're saying. I can't look at what you're saying because it's also interesting. I'll get massively deflected by it. What I shall do is I shall make some tea and read these afterwards, I think. But there's a track I wanted to follow, which is this. We used to joke about it sometimes in the psychosynthesis training I was doing, is that when people start in therapy and counseling, and they're in the process, the very valid and helpful process of owning their story, there's a way in which sometimes they can get stuck in that and it becomes so kind of important to them. And they're going over their memories and they're saying, oh my God, maybe I'm like that because of that, and so on. That it's almost like their view narrows, or perhaps we shouldn't say narrows, but just changes in some way. And we long for the moment where the therapy gets to a stage, we hope, where there's getting off the storyline is possible as well. Let's have a look at that one. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. If lots of adults out there don't own their story as a child, easy to think that no child can. I find this troubling. Leads to denying children agency. Yes, I think. Thank you, Liz. Yes, I think the issue with this is what I may have misunderstood you here, but just it's really important to know what I'm not suggesting is that what I'm saying is right or that I have an answer. I'm just playing with ideas. I love this idea of us sitting around the fire. I know it's horribly skewed in my favor because I've got the mic and you can only type. In an ideal world, we'd be sitting around in a real fire and we'd be playing with these ideas and exploring these ideas together. I love the idea that came originally, didn't it, out of the classical times with, was it Socratic dialogue, and which the New England transcendentalists at the turn of the 2 centuries back, Emerson and Thoreau worked with the ideas, and particularly then sort of educational ideas about using conversation as a way of learning. Let's stop there, because this is a huge topic. There's another whole piece. Maybe I'll just shift the topic just to one other idea that I wanted to share with you, which is very much related to it, which is, as bards, we love story. Whereas being interested in the bardic tradition, being interested in story, we know the healing power of story. We know the inspirational aspect of story. Those of you who are doing the OBOD training know that we build the first year of training, the bardic training, on this wonderful story of the tale of Taliesin, and so on. So story is integral. And yet, the same understanding, I think, of the limiting nature of stories and the freedom we can experience when we let go of the story is equally important. The sort of underbelly, or not underbelly, the shadow side of the emphasis on stories as being healing and helpful and giving meaning to life and direction, purpose, and all that. The shadow side of it is that they can also trap you. And how would it be if we lived our lives without a sense of story? If I can walk out into the garden and just see the flowers and the trees and the animals, and not run a tape of what they all mean, how they're connected, how they live, the biology, the physics, the chemistry, the ecology of it all, but just experience it without having to put the mesh of story on top of it. I suppose this is another way of saying being in the now, perhaps. So let's just allow these ideas to percolate and cook, and do please comment. I really will read them, and I know and other people will, of course, too. That's the other thing. What you have to know about typing your stuff in there is that years later, somebody will be coming across it when they go and look at the recording on YouTube or on Facebook or wherever it is. Yeah. So there we go. So let's go into and I'll tell you what, I'll tell you a plan I've got cooking, which is in questions like this, where there's a lot to talk about. I'm thinking of perhaps some way we can set up where Tea with the Druid keeps its unique characteristic, which is being short, exploring a topic for 15, 20 minutes, and then going into a short meditation. I think there's a real value in that. But I'd quite like to dive into another room somewhere else, and where we can perhaps see each other and we can really discuss these topics in detail. Let's see if we can set that up. But in the meantime, let's go into a meditation now, if you want to. And let's just sense ourselves seated in front of the screen. So if you're willing, just be open to the fact that you're fully present here and now, facing your screen, but at the same time in some slightly altered state of consciousness, where you're connected with a whole bunch of other people in this otherworldly place, perhaps of the imagination, perhaps of the astral plane, who knows? But in some way, we're together and we're seated around a fire. You can feel the earth beneath you, bringing you a sense of stability. Breathe in the smell of the earth. It might help to just imagine that you're putting the palms of your hands down on the earth and feeling the earth. Notice whether it feels wet or dry. Well, how does it feel? Are you feeling grass? Are you feeling moss, stones, sand, soil? Hmm. Breathe in deeply, hold for a moment, and then breathe out fully and deeply, just letting go into this sense of being supported on the earth. And you can sense the trees in our sacred grove, in our clearing, with their roots deep in the soil. You can sense these roots and the way that they're all communicating with each other through the mycelium. There's this whole community beneath where we're seated, full of sentient life. And all this life has a kind of energy which just gently washes through us, through our energy field, benefiting us, and us benefiting it because we're all part of it. And then we become aware of the trees around us, sensing their protection and their power. Breathing in the essential oils. Taking in a deep breath, breathing in the energy of the trees, holding for a moment, and then breathing out fully and deeply. And then you become aware of the sky above you. You breathe in the energy of the sky. You feel how it brings vitality into your organism. And the energy of the sky meets the energy of the earth within the center of your being. And now, if you turn your attention to your breath, closing your inner eyes, and just focusing on your breath coming in and coming out. No need for anything else, really. Just sensing the life force flowing into you as you breathe in, and then the air flowing out as you breathe out. And then notice how you can sense the energy of the group. See if you can feel it, and you might sense it, or you might just try to imagine it if you can't feel anything. And you might like to imagine that you're stretching a hand out to either side of you, and your hand just slips into somebody's hand to your left and your right. And we're holding hands now in the circle. And there's this wonderful sense of life here. The life in the earth beneath us, the life in the trees around us, the life amongst us, seated here. And then a sense of the wider life of the animals and the birds, of the sky above us. And then just gently squeeze the hand to either side of you and move your hands away and place your hands on your heart. You can either imagine that or you can do it physically. Feels really nice to do it physically. It brings a sense of kind of comfort and centering, I think. And in doing that, we ask for a blessing on our lives and on our hearts, and a blessing on all our lives and all life. May all life be blessed. The earth, the animals, all creatures, all beings. A blessing on all life. And then our hands gently drift away. And just touching the earth now, just with our fingertips, we ask for a blessing on the land. And then slowly just coming back to a sense of peace and to the breath flowing in and out of us. And we open our eyes, inner eyes in the grove, and we see the fire burning perhaps, and see people's faces seated around the circle. Each one so different. Each one with its own story of how it came to be here, how she or he came to be here. But also connected to the source beyond stories. And then a deep bow to each and every one of us. And when we feel ready, just we allow ourselves to sense the sacred grove begin to fade as we become aware of being seated in front of our screen in the here and now. And when we feel ready, we open our eyes. So, thank you so much. Lovely to be with you. Lovely to know that we can honor our stories individually and collectively, and also let go of them perhaps, and just be free beings connected to the source, living in the now, grateful for life, grateful for being alive. And so I very much look forward to reading your comments. Do feel free. As far as I'm aware, you can type in comments after the broadcast has finished. I think I may be wrong, but I think you can. In which case, and of course you can come back. I think you'll have to tell me. I don't know. I'll have to check it out. But I think you can even come back to it later. Well, of course you can. I suppose you can go onto YouTube or, half an hour later, you can have a cup of tea and read people's comments and then chip in a bit and add some more in later. So I very much look forward to reading on your comments, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Where will I be available? Let's have a look. Yes, it'll be Easter Monday here. Yeah. Okay. Good. Lovely. Okay. Many blessings. Much love, and see you next Monday. Okay. Bye.